Hi. Wow. I can almost see all of you. Amazing. My name is Michael, and I am incredibly happy to be back in Logroño. NSSpain is by far the bestest and most difficult conference to get to I've ever spoken at. I don't think it's just the wine, but at this conference, I've met some of the nicest people and had some of the deepest conversations of any conference I've ever been to. It's very special. So thank you for spending this time with me. Cool. I originally wanted to give a full talk about how bars and restaurants in this city uses a point-of-sale system that all features Bruce Willis as the main account labeled Master. I have spent a long time thinking about this since my last trip. I mean, what does it mean? Why Bruce Willis? He truly is the master. But I decided against it and went with a different topic. So today I want to talk about fun, and specifically I want to share with you some things that I have learned about creating a career that you love, that I love. This April I turned 40, which is as good as any time to reflect. And we're living through a unique time, unprecedented in history, where anyone with access to a computer can build a career. Now, this gives you the freedom to pursue what truly excites you, to align your work with your values and your passion. And I don't think that any other generation before us have really had this level of freedom. In essence, we're in an age where the traditional definitions of career, work, and success are being rewritten. But with a freedom like that, it's also much easier to get lost in the woods. And not a lot of other people have walked the exact path that you're on. People building their own career will find that the road can be long and winding. It'll fork many times, and you'll most likely get lost before finding your way. And it kind of dawned on me as I was turning 40 that I've spent the past 20 years learning how to come up with guides that bring me safely through the forest. And so this talk is some of those guides. So I want to talk about getting started. I want to talk about finding inspiration, figuring it out, getting paid, learning from your mistakes, and also this one secret trick that I've used time and time again in my career. And hopefully, by the end of this 165 slides, some of these stories might contain things that could be valuable to you. Ready? Okay? Yeah, okay, cool. Woo. I'll pause for... Great. I grew up loving computers. And I played games like Transport Tycoon and Age of Empires and Stronghold. And games was kind of like my first foray into design. I was using simple game engines to make little games, first on my Amiga and later on the PC. I think making sprites was actually my first love for drawing constrained things in a canvas, something I'd later use in my career. I studied computer science at university. That's how that looks, in Denmark at least. But I found that I was a horrible programmer. Luckily, people wanted to pay me money to design things. And so I became a graphic designer. And when you're starting out as a designer or developer or anything really, you're often best served with doing a lot of work and sharing as much as possible. I started doing web design in the early 2000s, and let me tell you, I worked on a lot of shit. Websites for financial institutions, websites for coffee companies, websites for upscale supermarkets. So many websites with bad stock images. This one with the baby is one of my favorite worst ones, right? How about UI for baby dental records, anyone? Yes? Anyone know what this is? Oh, you're in for a treat. This is the Jess Extender, the premium penis enlargement kit. Yeah, take a good long look. Yeah. At the agency I worked at, we were doing graphics for them, so yeah, I ended up doing affiliate packaging, banners, and website design for the Jess Extender. You know, I put that doctor up there, right? You see that doctor, like that guy? Look at him, huh? He'll help you out. I also worked on lots of illustration stuff. I never considered myself a very good illustrator, but people were paying me money to draw stuff. did lots of fun conceptual work. This is for an antivirus solution. I don't know. I loved doing icon design very early on, and so I relished any opportunity I got to work on small drawings, rendering these little things in Photoshop. I made icons for free to give away in my spare time. Did lots of replacement icon sets and UI customization back in the day. You guys remember Winamp? UI customization. Let's bring it back. UI customization. Yeah, you can clap. Yeah. So making these little downloadable icon sets and including like the source files so that people could build out the set and make their own. Eventually doing all this stuff, I attracted the attention of bigger companies in Denmark. So I was commissioned by Lego to come up with a new look for their icons and trying to nail down a style that could improve on their existing flat icons. It was really cool, got lots of Lego. They never used my icons, so. And every time I wasn't working on something for someone, I would try to push my rendering skills in Photoshop. I drew Wall-E and Eve from scratch right as I came back from it kind of dates me a little bit here, but when I came back from seeing Wall-E in the cinema, this was hundreds of layers in Photoshop, literally. Just shapes on top of each other with layer styles applied. It wasn't a very effective way of doing it, but I learned a lot. I was just constantly coming up new projects to do, like a more fun Safari icon. In fact, I did like this whole range of experimental Safari icons, like playing around with this idea of other types of compasses, maybe a scout compass or a military-themed one, or a GPS, or maybe a needle in a glass of water. Flight compass, will that look like a nautical compass? Is that even a thing? Like one with the earth underneath? Yeah, really love drawing stuff like that. I dreamt of one day working in the video game industry. So I would make lots of wallpapers for games that I liked. Big Civilization fan here, so I did a wallpaper recreating the V from Civ 5. Probably the most downloaded wallpaper I ever did was this Minecraft thing. So what I want to say is that start with volume and velocity. I think this is a universal truth for most beginnings. If you're trying to get good at something, you gotta do it a lot. You just gotta make a lot of crap. And I think that goes for anything, really. Shrink the first step. Like, there is no perfect time to begin. If you can't get started, it's because the first step has grown too big or too undefined for you to take. So you want to shrink the first step into smaller, actionable tasks. Okay, so when it comes out to figuring out what to do, I have found that the best advice is to find inspiration in things that you love. As my career as a self-employed graphic designer grew, I was finding myself doing a lot of the same work over and over again. So one day I sat down and I made a template for app icons so that I wouldn't have to constantly do the groundwork again and again. I bought a domain, made a quick website, and uploaded it. And as the template grew, it crossed 1 million downloads. And most app icons made in the early days of the iPhone used my tools. So that was kind of humbling. I later turned this into a platform with many templates and started charging for some of them. It's a resource site I call Apply Pixels. And it's probably one of my most profitable side projects I've ever made. The tools I've built over the years has also allowed me to give workshops on icon design around the world. And so this one thing that I made kind of spun out into a whole part of my career. So you want to find inspiration in things that you love, things that you find yourself doing all the time. Hobbies and passions are an incredibly powerful source of inspiration. It's how we turn interests into side projects and side projects into businesses that are fun to work in. I also just want to say, I think this is a very human quality, but I love it when people love things fiercely. Being totally into something is admirable and a fantastic source of creative energy. You want to seek to expand the pool of things you love. It'll broaden your horizon, it'll fuel your curiosity, and it'll make connections that you can't predict. I love building computers. I love building custom Game Boys. I collect video games. I am really into winter bathing, probably my Scandinavian genes. I'm a huge beer geek, and I absolutely love being a parent. And connecting with things I like is the source of inspiration in the things that I make. Okay, so once you've understood how to get started on your craft and where to find inspiration, it's time to figure out what the hell you want to do with it, right? Now, I have worked on hundreds of projects with other people and built many, many things that never went anywhere. Made a television show tracker app once. Worked on so many weather apps. I can't even remember them all. This one was called Outside, the first one. This is Thermo, this is Haze. I made a dribble app once. Tried building an RSS app for iOS and Mac. Made a music festival app. That was pretty cool. It was a really fun project for Denmark's largest music festival. Got a lot of free beer on that one. Worked on a service that helps you keep track of game releases. Never had a monetization strategy and eventually had to shut it down because it was costing me too much money. It was actually a really cool project. It was called Arcade Trail. Worked on a service that helps speakers share at talks and events organizers to find them. Again, no monetization, so. Worked on an app that connects blind people with sighted people. We worked pro bono on this thing. It was hugely popular, and Be My Eyes, as it was called, would eventually sell to Microsoft. Worked on lots of TV OS apps. Worked on a service that uses generative AI to turn you into a video game character. It was called Hero Pack. Worked on so many silly stickers. I have some of the graphic designs, my passion stickers in my pocket if you guys come up to me afterwards, as long as I have them. Made a label for a beer, why not? And eventually I also got to work professionally on several games that we released, some for clients and some for ourselves. So to figure out what you love to do and what you don't, you have to try a lot of things. Instead of like one big project, try making 10 smaller projects. I guarantee you'll learn more. Anything worthwhile takes a lot of work. You can work on stuff that aren't worthwhile, but nothing worthwhile comes without a lot of work. That's a thing that I've had to learn again and again. Try not to please everyone with the things that you make. It's your work, really. Just make it reflect your taste. Okay, so you're figuring it out. You will eventually need to eat. I know a lot of people who build things on the side while they're employed. I have been freelancing for 2 decades. Back when I was starting out, I founded a little one-man design studio called Pixel Resort. That's followed me through the years. This is 18 years now. This is the 6 major versions of the site. And through Pixel Resort, people can employ me to work on design for their things. I still do this sometimes. I think freelancing as a designer or a developer is kind of like a superpower, really. You get paid to get better at what you'd like to do. And I have been very fortunate to be able to fund my many experiments with work for others that I really enjoy. And I have, over the years, homed in on the sort of projects that I like making and the visual style that I enjoy. You just have to be really careful, because it can also lead to derailing you and working on things that can take you further away from happiness, right? Here's a few short tips that I've learned about getting paid to do things that you like. So sharing work is how you get more work. In the creative business, the influx of new work comes from sharing your current work. That's just how it works. And if you don't have work to share, you're starting out, whatever, then invent personal projects and share those. I think this goes as well for developers looking for jobs and whatnot. Just envision something, put it on a website somewhere. It does not matter. You decide. That website should probably be your own place. I think you should not rely too much on social platforms or networks. You want to build a portfolio where you control the content and the experience. I see a lot of developers that don't have their own portfolios. Just, here's my GitHub. It's like, no. Portfolios, everyone, right? You are also creatives. Say no to projects. Projects that you don't love end up taking more away than they give. You're basically exchanging your time, attention, and more exciting opportunities for something that your heart is not in. You also want to set clear expectations with clients. It is your shop, not theirs. Let them know exactly what to expect. Prices, process, deadlines, terms. Be ready to say no when you're not aligned on any of those things. Good clients are the ones that you agree with. Okay, and if you have too much work, what do? Charge more money. Yes. Pricing is hard, but don't shy away from experimenting with different rates and business models. I would guarantee that most people freelancing in here are probably charging too little. Freedom of time, freedom of creativity, the ability to work flexibly on something you love while living a fulfilling life is the goal. Money can be a tool in that process, but never the destination. Also, I want to say plan for failure. Most products don't work out. Most things never make a profit. I know that. Hype with your heart, but plan with your wallet. Okay, so let's talk about learning from your mistakes. Story time. I wish I could go back and tell myself to listen to this advice. While you're making things, pay close attention to where those adventures take you. So in 2013, I was running a product development studio called RoboCat. And we built a lot of different apps and things, and services and events. One of the apps that we made was this little weather app called Thermo. It was really popular, got millions of downloads. It showed the outside temperature in this little thermometer design. We'd sometimes get some pretty hilarious one-star app reviews, like this one, right? You know, I checked the temperature in our bathroom and then went to our fireplace, still said -2 degrees, it doesn't work, it's a waste of time, 1 star. Well, people didn't really understand that iPhones couldn't actually measure temperature. It just kind of looked like a thermometer. You know, it was actually grabbing data from the internet. But then we met this guy at a party, Marcus. He's an electrical engineer. We had some beers. We told him about the fun reviews. And as a fun little side project, as the evening got further in, we decided to see if we could actually make a temperature sensor for the iPhone. And then here's the first prototype. We used do you guys remember the audio jack? Well, we used the audio jack and a little resistance sensor, and then we built our own little API around it. And I got to design hardware. And we worked with a production company to turn those designs into something that we could manufacture. This is the second prototype. Looks a little better, I think. We figured the best way to going about it would be making, a little Kickstarter, right? And we asked for $35,000 because hardware is expensive. And then we launched it, and we ended up getting nearly 10 times that much. And we looked at each other like, oh shit. We now had to mass produce more than 20,000 units and ship them to 77 countries. We established partnerships with factories in China. We had to learn a lot about building physical products in a very short amount of time. This could be its own talk. Iterative development pretty much meant we'd get samples at our office, and then we'd inspect the samples and send them back revisions when the locking mechanism wasn't durable enough or some coding wasn't up to standard. It took a lot of work, but the finished product was quite nice. It's a small thermometer for your iPhone that fit in the palm of your hand. We also had to learn about the wonders of shipping globally. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But we were the most funded project in Northern Europe in 2013, and I got on the front page of Børsen, which is the biggest business publication in Denmark. My mom was proud. Yeah. But honestly, looking back at it all now, these many years later, I can say without a doubt that I would never do that again. It's not that it was a lot of work, it was. And it's not that I had to learn a lot of new things, I really had to. It's that the work I increasingly found myself doing was boring. We had to grow the company, and I spent way longer managing things instead of making things. I was solving things, and we were successful, but I wasn't having fun. And that is because you become what you work on. The world has this tendency to feed you more of what you put into it. So you gotta make sure it's something you like. I find this little diagram helpful here. If you do something that you think is fun, right? I've always found someone out there that thinks it's cool. That's how it works on the internet. You are then in turn presented with similar projects. As I said, the world has this tendency to give you more of what you put into it. Unfortunately, if you're doing something you think is boring, that same mechanism works too, right? The world will give you more of it. If you are not having fun right now in whatever you are doing, chances are you are not going to have fun at all. This is something that I've had to learn and relearn many times in my career. People always think that good projects are just around the corner, or after this next milestone it's going to clear up, or this next job's going to be better. No, that's not how it works. Okay, I have one hack that I'd like to give you all. Some of the most successful projects that I have made would never have happened if I didn't use this one special trick. I'm just going to share it with you. It's secret, right? So no pictures or anything like that, right? Self-delusion. Yeah. So if you are unsure of whether or not you can pull something off, just imagine that you are someone who can. Allow yourself to suspend disbelief and step into the role of someone who has already achieved what you're aiming for by convincing yourself, even temporarily, that you are capable of doing the thing you can push past self-doubt and hesitation. So if you're here, anyone was here at NSSpain 2022? Hands? Yay! Oh, it's a lot of people. Okay, cool. Well, you might be familiar with this story. I'll give a short version of it. A few years back, I announced that I was working on a book about app icons. It was a very public thing. I bought the domain, tweeted it out. I was like, no stopping now. We've lived through this golden age of icon design, but a lot of that art is disappearing. I wanted to make a beautiful art book that celebrated this art form that had meant so much to my career. Collecting, legally obtaining license agreements, and curating a book full of hundreds of works of art turned out to be a huge undertaking. So much so that it took me 4 years to make the first book, writing thousands of emails and coordinating with hundreds of artists and copyright holders around the world, often resorting to internet archaeology of finding long-lost app icons and retrieving high-resolution files from some long-forgotten source. After all that work, I did a Kickstarter for the first book. I was crazy nervous, but I shouldn't have been, because it got funded in 49 minutes, and it went on to raise 136,000 euros, or 1,364% of the goal. And went on this amazing journey of producing thousands of books that now live around the world. And last year, I kind of did it again. This time, working on a book celebrating app icon design on the Mac. That is a story that stretches even further back than iOS. And this book would be like a love letter to all of the art that's been produced for the Mac, a platform that's shaped so much of today's visual design. And it posed many of the same challenges as the first book. This time, though, I was better prepared. I set up a site for a streamlined artwork submission process and automatic signing service. I had also learned a lot about layout from doing the first book, and had gone from a complete noob in InDesign to slightly less of a noob in InDesign. And I think I'll stay there for the rest of my life. I ran another Kickstarter. I got nervous again, but shouldn't have, because the book was funded in 39 minutes and went on to raise 112,000 euros, or 1,121% of the goal. So it was increasing. I was really happy with the result. Like, the iOS app icon book now had like the sibling. It's these two wonderful books that I made with the community, and they're out there serving as inspirations for other generations of designers and developers. I actually have them right here. Brought 2 signed copies that Louis will give away at the end of the conference. Woo! Yeah, I'm really happy about that project. But here's the lesson. Be naive. If I had known how hard it would have been to make these 2 books here, I don't think all the challenges that I would have to overcome, I might never have been, stupid enough to attempt it, right? Now, knowing all of the boundaries and limitations beforehand stops us from even getting started. And when we are aware of every obstacle, like every potential setback, it's easy to talk ourselves out of trying. Sometimes it's better not to see the full mountain ahead, but just focus on the first few steps. Okay, so one of the best guiding principles for making things in my career has been to make things I wish existed. I hope this is clear for some of the stories that I'm telling now, but I've worked on things that I thought was clever. I have worked on things that I thought might turn a profit and make me rich. But it's the things that came solely from my own desires that has been the most fun and rewarding to work on. In 2021, I had been running my game studio Northplay for 6 years. I would eventually go on to work in the games industry. And we had self-published a number of games on multiple platforms and reached around 10 million players. These are the games that we've self-published, and these are the games that we made for other people. Bootstrapping a company like this and funding it from your own games and the work for hire meant that we could only really plan a few months into the future. And honestly, I was ready to try something new. So we traveled to Billund in Denmark to pitch a new game to a large Danish toy manufacturer. It's a game we wanted to make with Lego. It's a tycoon game set in the Lego City universe. We had invested quite a bit in this prototype, building all new tech that would allow us to make these big Lego worlds. And we had a great presentation at their HQ. Everyone loved it, right? And you'd build these little vehicles and transport. Anyone play Transport Tycoon? Yeah, it's that in the Lego City universe, right? Unfortunately, the game got rejected. Yeah. So, honestly, at this point, I was about ready to quit because running a studio is hard, and I was learning on the job as a studio CEO, and I was ready for the next 6 years to look different from the first 6 years. But I figured I'd give it one last shot. If I had to make one game before I closed the studio, it would be a real-time strategy game that paid tribute to the games that I grew up with. So we started working on an RTS with a twist. Instead of whizzing around the minimap as an omnipotent god, you would control a character in the world. The camera was anchored to that character at all times. This is what one of the first prototypes looked like. This game would have base building and castle construction, but you'd interact with it all through controlling this one lord character, which for the longest time was this bald dude. It was awesome. So this also meant that you'd be able to participate in these battles, right, yourself, which isn't something that's usually a thing in these types of games. Essentially, we're kind of making a mixture between action RPG, like a Diablo, and a real-time strategy game set in medieval England. But I had one more twist that I wanted to explore. What if this game had dinosaurs? Right? Here's a super wonky early prototype. And honestly, it took some serious convincing of the team. They thought, we're already doing this crazy mix. It's like, no dinosaurs. Every meeting, I'd be like, well, what if it had raptors in it? But finally, they came to see that I was, of course, right, not just because I'm their boss. Everything is better with dinosaurs. Yes. So my thinking was that in a game like this, where you're in the world, you want some big targets to sink a lot of arrows into, and the fantasy of dinosaurs in medieval times was just too much fun not to explore. So we started pitching our prototype to publishers in the summer last year, and honestly, I had more than 30 meetings with publishers. And eventually, we'd signed these guys. This is Ghost Ship Games, a Danish developer that makes a very popular game called Deep Rock Galactic. They've been awesome. And I now had the financial support to plan longer for the studio. After a lot more work, it was finally time to announce the game. I worked on it for weeks on the trailer, and it's always a big deal when you're announcing video games. I have the trailer with me right now. Can we turn up the audio? Let's see what it all amounted to.
We didn't think the Viking raids could get any worse. The Danes are coming! You, a lord of England, must tame the land. Establish a thriving village and keep it supplied as it grows. Construct fortifications and build a mighty castle. Train your forces and prepare to man the ramparts. For our enemies have harnessed an ancient terror. In this world of steel and scale, only the bravest leaders, the ones who can defend their strongholds, the ones who can raise an army, the ones who can fight together, will be known as Dino Lords.
Yeah! Woo!
Wishlist now on Steam.
Everything is better with dinosaurs. And when you're making an early access Steam PC game, there's really only one metric to live by. And that is by how many people have wishlisted the game on Steam, because they can't buy it yet. Most indies aim for the magical threshold of 10,000 wishlists. Something happens with the Steam algorithm when you cross that border. Now, we have crossed 75,000 wishlists, which is amazing for a small studio. Yeah. It now looks like we'll have a future that I'll enjoy. Please all wishlist the game, by the way. That would actually make I would be able to see that on Monday. But also, Rolling Stone, the magazine, wrote about my dinosaur game. Freaking Rolling Stone interviewed us. Mom was proud. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so there's a bunch of things that's immediately evident from that story. One of them is that I keep reminding new makers is that creative work doesn't follow a straight line from not good to good. This goes for both graphic design, apps, and games. For the majority of the process, the work looks like shit until it suddenly doesn't. Don't get discouraged by results that aren't shaping up, it just hasn't found its form yet. One of the lessons that have become part of my core operating system is this: impress your inner child, or your actual children if you have any of those. Making things that the child version of you would find cool has been a surprisingly good guide for creative decisions in my life. Adults are really just kids who forgot how to play. So those are some of the things that I've learned walking the paths through the forest so far. I think we live in an incredible time that allows for a lot of freedom to build a career that you'll love. If you want to work on something, chances are that there are steps right now, you can take right now to move closer to that work. You don't have to wait for permission, you gotta find that first step and you gotta invent the job. Work can be difficult, work can be hard, but it should always have an element of fun. If you're not having fun, you're not heading in the right direction. Thank you.